דירת קודש נבחרה דירת קודש נבחרה ממנה תצא אורה זו תורה
I was born in Egypt, and I decided, or we decided as a family, to migrate due to the problems of Jewry in the Middle East after World War II and Israel state establishment in 48, which caused some havocs in Egypt, and hence we had to leave to migrate to pasture grounds. Australia was the one that was more attractive due to language, because of my educational background, and to upstart as quickly as one would want it to be as a migrant in a new country. I came in February 1958, and my family, being my father, mother, and sister, followed in by December of the same year. I was working in Melbourne to start off, following my trade, which was in the printing industry in Egypt, and I was transferred from Melbourne to Brisbane, and this is the first encounter of my background and my ethnicity took place. Being of Sephardic origin, first time out of the Middle East arena, I found myself completely lost in Brisbane when I first went to the synagogue in Elizabeth Street there during the high holidays. That was the most strangest and striking adventure of my life as a Jew. No disrespect to the Ashkenazi brethren and brothers, it just could not fit with my background and education. As that point in time took place, my family was coming to Australia. I could not get them to be isolated in Brisbane, whereby our akin to us would have been very difficult to live. So we came to Melbourne. I came back to Melbourne, and we started our life in Melbourne. That was in 1959. 1961, I got married to Vivian, whom I met in Adelaide through devious means. I shall not bore you with that. But that betrothal, thank goodness, lasted till now, being 39 years young. In 1964, we're still free, no family obligation as such. We went on a holiday to Brisbane, to Queensland, on the Gold Coast, and on the way back we stopped in Sydney, and we were introduced to the Sydney Sephardic synagogue, which I was told was very similar to our upbringing. We went there, both my wife and I, and we were absolutely spellbound with the similarity and the background that we were so well accustomed to. I said to my wife, we have to do something in Melbourne because I do not frequent any synagogues and I feel myself lonely, particularly in the high holidays. No disrespect again to the Ashkenazi brethren and brothers, I found myself a stranger in that atmosphere. I could not find a way to assimilate to that, and I was only hoping that something could happen in Victoria. In Sydney, I spoke to the people of the community there, and I said to them, how did you start? How did you do it? Where did you come from? And they gave me their story, and he said, well, why don't you start it in Victoria? I said, well, where do I start? And the next question about who to contact and what to do, I was given the name of Mr. Max Menachem to contact in Melbourne. I immediately took that on board, and when we came back, I went to see who is now unfortunately passed on, Mr. Menachem in Elwood at his home. And from thread to needle, we were told to go and see Mr. Maurice, who is a known person to our family from Egypt, and we saw also Johnny Matza, who is a cousin of my wife. And they all said the same thing, oh, it's too difficult, oh, it's this, oh, it's that. I said, well, look, if we don't do something, nothing will happen. Let's get on with the job and do something about it. Well, he said, go ahead, Maurice, do something. So we just did that, and I tried to contact, I said to Max, you contact your people, I contact mine. I wanted to have a meeting and see whether this can be lifted off the floor. It took place in August of 1965 in my flat in Chapel Street, St. Kilda. We were 14 people in that meeting, and we said we should form, and some people said we should form a club, some people said we should form a social gathering, and then all said we should really revive our background services of Sephardic nature. And we said, well, why don't we start this year? And we said, but it's only 3 weeks away from high holidays. And it was a miracle and short of a miracle. Everybody puts his 2 bobs worth. We said, we don't have any money. There was about 74 pounds that was put on the table. Each one said 5 and 10 and this. And we were able to say, we'll hire some chairs. And it really ran beyond our wildest of dreams. We contacted Rabbi Lubovsky. Rabbi Lubovsky was kind enough to lend us a small sefer with its casings and its housing to put on in a room. Anwar Jawari was able to get us a small room at the Moravian synagogue. And believe it or not, that same year of 1965, we were in a small room. We were able to get the services of the gentleman that blew the shofar for the Moravian synagogue to come and blow it for us at Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And it was the most tearful, emotional service I can ever will remember in my entire existence, at least in Australia.
Our first services ever were held at the Moravian synagogue's boardroom. We were 60 people, ladies included. The late Mr. Anwar Jawari and family, Vivian Maurice Levy, Benny Cohen and family, Mr. Matza and family. It was very nice of the Moravian board to supply us with a Sefer Torah reader on the occasion of Yom Kippur. Year after, we hired the Bnei Berit hall, where we improved on the service. In 1967, we hired the Shomer HaTzair hall. The year after, we hired a hall in Dickens Street, where we had the pleasure of having the services of Bar Cohen. May Hashem bless him.
My history with the association goes back to my childhood, probably the age of 10 years old, when my father first brought me to the synagogue, what was, in my eyes, a synagogue, but it was really a rented hall in Moorabbin. And from years on, we kept going from rented hall to rented hall. I must have been 10, 11 and 12 years of age. We went to, the association had hired halls, whether it was in Beitar or in Habonim, I think it was Bnei Akiva or certainly Bnei Brith Hall. And year in, year out, we'd go to the hall. For some reason, I always felt somewhat different to the other children who used to go to a regular synagogue. What I felt was more like a hall with high chairs and so forth. And that's where the background started. And it rejuvenated, my interest rejuvenated probably in the late teens when I was invited to the committee of the association by the then President Gamill.
And that was the birth of the Sephardic movement, of the Sephardic background, of the tradition. There was only tears, there was only emotion. God knows how many handkerchiefs at the time, tissues were not known probably, and that were used and wetted during that year. And from there on, it started to snowball, slowly but surely, only because our love to our own background tradition. Here I will pause to say, I am talking from an Egyptian background. Little did I know that there were so many different variations of Sephardic people in Victoria. Some of them from Singapore, some of them from India, some of them from Baghdad, some of them from Persia, from Egypt, from Algeria, from Morocco. And we were a League of Nations in our own right. This then became a big problem, a problem of assimilation within the same factor of assimilation. We had a tune in Egypt, it was a different tune to Morocco. It was a different tune to Algeria, it was a different tune to Baghdad. And we came to a truce like good old Jews get together. We would agree to disagree, and we took a sentence with we took a song or a passage, and we dissected it into 10 different methods of singing it, and we adopted our own method of singing it. And it became such a unique minhag, as we call it, that I would really challenge another congregation to have that minhag anywhere else. From that on, we were really hiring halls and only holding services for the high holidays. And it started to become more of an itching effect that we had to do something. What did we have to do? Is to become an identity within ourselves, form a constitution, do something, raise ourselves to a synagogue status, etc. That wasn't easy. Max Menachem organized to do our first constitution, and God knows how many discussions and almost near riots to put it into place. It came to being that we had the visit by sheer coincidence by one of a member of our congregation who was living in Melbourne at the time. He invited or got to get inviting the chief rabbi of the Commonwealth Sephardic, Hacham Gaon. And he came to Australia and he said, I cannot understand you people, how you do not do anything about an established place. And we claim that we are very poor, we don't have the money, we don't have the resources. At the end he said, look, and I will never forget this as long as I live. He said, congregants, if you do not start something, nothing will follow. You show that you start, and you do not know when your next dollar will come from. And he said, I will help you by getting you a grant from the Montefiore Foundation on a loan interest-free basis to get you started. Buy yourself a piece of land and you will be astounded at what will happen. And we took his advice, and thank God we did. We started our services in Melbourne, which was not an identified Jewish community.
We were lucky to have had the services of Mr. Albert Bassett, a building engineer who built the synagogue for free. I will not discuss how we cover the costs of the building, as other people were responsible and looked into it. My duties were delivering Saturday services and various holidays services. Now at last we have a palace for a synagogue, thanks to Hashem, with a very good rabbi. I pray Hashem for the continued success and progress. We should have able people to see to that.
17, 18 years ago, when I was in my 30s, I got together with Danny Jaffe and with Ron Rab, and we decided that something is missing for the Sephardi synagogue at the time, which is just brand new, the one in Darling Street, and we decided to organize something for the youths.
My interest rejuvenated probably in the late teens, when I was invited to the committee of the association by the then President Gamill. The President had some sort of vision about the future of the youth and where the Sephardim are going to go, and he approached me to commence the Sephardi Younger Set. After giving this a bit of thought, we got a few friends together and trying to get people of similar age group. And then my best friend, not a Sephardi, an Ashkenazi gentleman, who's involved very much now with Brighton Synagogue, to start up what was called the Sephardi Younger Set. And for a few years we ran Israeli dances, Israeli food nights, Sephardim functions, talks, picture nights, all sorts of activities that got people closer together to the association.
Our tradition is so precious to us, or at least that's my enthusiasm into it, was so precious I wanted to keep it at all costs. I wanted to inculcate it to my children in order to attract more attention. In order, we need a better place, and we needed a rabbi. And that's where today's building came into effect in Houghton Streets in Kildare.
While arriving here 18 months ago, I saw a wonderful Jewish community. Part of that, a Sephardi community, who include Jews from the Middle East, from Iraq, from Bombay, from Morocco, and all different kind of places that have come here together and made a wonderful synagogue and looking for a direction. And I have found that the only way how to give them the Jewish pride is through giving them the Sephardi roots, traditions, and customs. A few months ago, after finishing conducting a service at the synagogue, approached me one of the oldest and telling me with tears in his eyes, "Rabbi, your tunes in your prayers made me 50 years younger." During the past year, we have organized many different lunches after the Shabbat morning service with different flavor as the Moroccan, Iraqi, Egyptian, and Indian style. Through the songs and through the stories and this unique atmosphere, they brought wonderful emotions to the congregants. And that here in Melbourne, can we flourish and grow and be proud. The first thing that I start is to give a future for the children. we start with a Sephardi Sunday school program. For all those kids, the majority of them don't learn in a Jewish school, give them a chance to learn about Judaism and the Sephardi tradition.
Very fun learning all the Jewish customs, and I had a good time learning.
Well, it's very exciting, learning stuff that you don't usually learn at school, and sitting in the atmosphere of the synagogue and seeing the Torah and all the things that they used to read.
The Sephardi synagogue, which represents the Sephardi Center of Victoria, offers all different services based on the Sephardi heritage, like the Sunday morning program for children, the Monday night lectures for men and women, the Wednesday night Jewish debate for youths, and many other activities. As a Jewish center, we are open and we welcome every single Jew. In fact, that a part of our members coming from all different nationalities.
Hi, I'm Simon, and I take part in the Wednesday night lessons with my fellow students and Rabbi Amar at the Sephardi synagogue. Rabbi Amar has an amazing ability to help connect the importance for every Jewish person to understand about their religion and the strengths that it gives the Jewish people, so that they walk out of each session with a strong connection and belief in themselves and in God, and suddenly have so much more energy in everyday living. If you've ever tried anything to release yourself and escape life, for example drinking or anything else like that, try this once a week and we guarantee you there's no hangovers.
I've just moved to Melbourne from Queensland, and being part of the Sephardi synagogue has been a wonderful experience. They've made me feel very welcomed with their weekly youth movements, their dinners every Shabbat, their very warm hospitality. All I have to say is thank you very much. Merci pour tout, and that's for everyone in the community. They've just been wonderful.
Being Sephardi is something that we all keep at heart. Our tradition is so important to all of us. That's what keeps us together. We have warmth, we have the sense of being all together, enjoying our company, and especially being able to mix so easily. There are so many highlights in the last 35 years. Was Siyum Sifrei Torah, Sepharim that came from Canada, from Israel, from Singapore, from Iraq, and all our special members who donated all this. And these were very, very moving times.
The highlight of the past 35 years has been the building of the new synagogue. We now need to formalize our organization, and this can only be done by increasing the membership, encouraging to bring in more new members, especially the younger members, and this can only be achieved by catering for their children.
I relatively new in the synagogue. I joined the synagogue in 84, 85, when we were in Melbourne. Be'ezrat Hashem, and thanks God, we managed to go through a lot of hard time. And I remember that night when we sat down in the committee and we didn't know if we have enough money to build half of the synagogue or the lot. And we were really in a very bad situation, and we had enough money only to build half of the synagogues. That means without the second layer. And at long last, we decided that we'll go for it, otherwise we'll never do it. And I'm glad that we did that, and this was one of the highlights in the past, that we went on without having enough money to build the synagogue, and we went and built it, the 2 stories which you see today. I'm happy that we moved because there was no Jewish community there, and we had to come where we came today.
I think the highlight of the association is now that we are getting into a distinct phase where we have the capacity to have a full-time rabbi. A full-time rabbi means that we have the capacity to have religious services day in, day out. It means that he can educate our young with the Sunday to Summit Torah. It also gives us the capacity to do other things for youth, shiurs and all that. So for me, that is a highlight. It marks a different stage of our growth of our synagogue and our association. The next phase, obviously, is to get financial security.
We're working on a resource centre and a library centre where people can come and learn about the history, working about education with the Talmud Torah for the children, education through shiurim for the adults as well.
Yes, as the vision of our library is that we'll at some later stage build up our collection of Sephardi books so that we'll be the largest Sephardi book collection in the Southern Hemisphere. This is only part of our collection.
The plans are many, but the idea is to give an opportunity to many hundreds and hundreds of Sephardi Jews here in Melbourne who are not related to any Jewish community to come and to enjoy the club, to help us to strengthen the community and to take part of this wonderful familiar atmosphere that we enjoy every Shabbat and every day that we meet together at the synagogue.
We got married this year at the Sephardi show. It was a beautiful wedding.
It reflected a lot of warmth and kindness from the community. The Rabbi Amar did a wonderful job and we had a wonderful time, fantastic day.
It was just a continuation of my father and my grandfather's tradition, and it was just full of life. That's what we loved about this.
And hoping soon that we should be able to look in the eyes of our children and telling them we have done everything to bring back your background and history alive, and we can all be proud.
דירת קודש נבחרה דירת קודש נבחרה
place in August of 1965 in my flat in Chapel Street, St. Kilda. We were 14 people in that meeting. And then all said we should really revive our background services of Sephardic nature. We contacted Rabbi Lubovsky. Rabbi Lubovsky was kind enough to lend us a small sefer. Anwar Jawari was able to get us a small room at the Morabbin Synagogue. And it was the most tearful, emotional service I can ever will remember in my entire existence, at least in Australia. And that was the birth of the Sephardic movement, of the Sephardic background, of the tradition.
We were 60 people, ladies included. The late Mr. Anwar Jawari and family, Levy and Maurice Levy, Benny Cohen and family, Mr. Matzah and family. The year after we hired the Bnei Berit Hall, where we improved on the service. In 1967 we hired the Shomer HaSair Hall. The year after we hired the hall in Dickens Street, where we had the pleasure of having the services of Bart Cohen. May Hashem bless him.
For some reason I always felt somewhat different to the other children who used to go to a regular synagogue. What I felt was more like a hall with high chairs and so forth.
And from there on, it started to snowball, slowly but surely, only because our love to our own background tradition. What did we have to do is to become an identity within ourselves, form a constitution, raise ourselves to a synagogue status, etc. That wasn't easy. Max Menachem organized to do our first constitution. We had the visit, by sheer coincidence, by one of a member of our congregation who was living in Melbourne at the time. He invited, or got to get inviting, the chief rabbi of the Commonwealth Sephardic, Hacham Gaon. And he came to Australia and he said, I cannot understand you people, how you do not do anything about an established place. And I will never forget this as long as I live. He said, congregants, if you do not start something, nothing will follow. We started our services in Melbourne.
We were lucky to have had the services of Mr. Albert Bassett, a building engineer who built the synagogue for free. Now at last we have a palace for a synagogue, thanks to Hashem.
17, 18 years ago, when I was in my 30s, I got together with Jaffe and with Rabbi, and we decided that something is missing for the Sephardi synagogue at the time, which is just brand new, the one in Darling Street. And we decided to organize something for the youths.
My interest rejuvenated probably in the late teens when I was invited to the committee of the association by the then President Gamill. The President had some sort of vision about the future of the youth and where the Sephardi were going to go, and he approached me to commence the Sephardi Younger Set. After giving this a bit of thought, we got a few friends together and trying to get people of similar age group. And then my best friend, not a Sephardi, an Ashkenazi gentleman who's involved very much now with Brighton Synagogue, to start up what was called the Sephardi Younger Set. And for a few years we ran Israeli dances, Israeli food nights, Sephardim functions, talks, picture nights, all sorts of activities that got people closer together to the association.
Our tradition is so precious to us, or at least that's my enthusiasm into it, was so precious I wanted to keep it at all costs. I wanted to inculcate it to my children in order to attract more attention. In order, we need a better place, and we needed a rabbi. And that's where today's building came into effect in Houghton Street in Kilda.